Joining us now is Ryan Girdusky. He is the author of the National Populist newsletter, of which we have a link down in the description and encourage everybody to subscribe. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thanks for having me.
So, Ryan, the reason we booked you is because you always have unvarnished analysis, especially in terms of what Republicans are doing wrong and how they are winning votes. So what you wrote immediately after the results of Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, and New York elections was this, is why are we performing so badly? We lost high propensity, mostly college-educated white voters. We gained lots of low propensity voters who don't show up. The weirdness around conservative culture, Taylor Swift is a CIA plant, election was stolen, etc., is only making these people run away more. It is hurting up and down the ballot almost everywhere we go. And the fact that these low propensity voters won't vote early is because they believe in nonsensical conspiracies about voting machines. People need to be aware. So Ryan, not only are you descriptively writing about the problem, but you also have some solutions and things in order to be able to move past this. So just give us your general reaction to those results in New York, building on top of what I just read there.
So in New York, Mazi Phillips, the Republican, the Nassau County GOP, which is Nassau County is in the 3rd Congressional District along with Queens, is one of the most efficient and actually powerful local Republican parties in the country. They've done an amazing job winning elections for candidates up and down the ballot. The thing is that to me, they got very cute with how they picked their endorsement process. They picked a woman, Black, Jewish, IDF, former veteran, mother of 7, immigrant. I mean, they went through the check boxes, but she was a registered Democrat who had close to no conservative beliefs. I mean, on immigration, on abortion, on close to anything. I didn't hear her say any Republican or conservative talking points. And she ran against a very long vet. Swazi has been in elected office since 1994. He's been here for a very, very, very long time. The reason that she overperformed Trump and overperformed even George Santos in 2020, who ran against Swazi in 2020, was because Nassau County and that area of Queens is moving to the right. Nonetheless, and yet still, she lost, and she should, and a better Republican would have been able to win. And it's not one specific thing. I mean, Mazi did not campaign. She wouldn't campaign on Saturday. She wouldn't campaign in the evenings. She was multiple campaign events she didn't even show up to altogether. She was a bad candidate, but there is something larger going on. In Oklahoma, we had a special election for state senate and a Republican plus 26 seat that they won by 5. In Pennsylvania, there was a Democrat plus 10 seat that we lost by like 50. There is a problem right now, and the problem specifically is there were a lot of Republicans used to dominate special elections. We would absolutely dominate it just 10 years ago. But we traded high propensity college-educated voters for a lot of non-college educated voters of many different political persuasions who do not vote in most elections. They just don't. And the persuadable independent voter are looking at Republicans a lot and agreeing with them on immigration, on education we're winning them on a million different issues we are winning them on. But yet they are looking at them and saying, they're weird. Something is really, really weird about them that I don't want to be around. And that is the vibe check is a very big problem.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. This poll just came out about the alleged Taylor Swift, NATO, Soros, Pfizer psyop. Let's put this up on the screen. So you've got 18% of the public believes in this covert government effort for Taylor Swift to help Joe Biden win the presidential election. 73% say this is insane and it does not exist. 9% say they don't know. But also critically, Ryan, there was a large proportion of the public that knew about this insane conspiracy that obviously is overwhelmingly rejected by the public, but is believed by a significant proportion of the Republican base. So I think there's a lot to your instinct that just like normies who may, agree with Republicans on some issue and be open, especially to like a more moderate Republican in Long Island or whatever, like these people are just going off the deep end. Like this Taylor Swift conspiracy, nonsense and a whole host of other down the rabbit hole online conspiracy theories are just too much for me to swallow and associate with.
Look, because the media, the established media, has failed so spectacularly at doing their job and presenting honest facts, there is a business model, a very substantial business model, where if you can get 10,000 people or 15,000 people who like you and will give you $3 a month and support you, you have a very serious business. So you have insert ex-Republican conservative influencer name, sitting there and peddling nonsense to it's as if it's like pure heroin to their loyal people who believe they are the only arbiters of the truth. And they have to sell the most pure. I mean, it has to go 10. You got to push that envelope every single time, because if you don't, somebody else will. That is very, very, very damaging, especially when so many of those thoughts are just free of facts. A lot of them are peddling influence to other campaigns in order to get more access to other people in hopes of getting, invited to the White House Christmas party. It is an extremely toxic trait in our culture right now. It is especially toxic right now in Republican politics. And I don't know. I mean, it is the great irony of the Donald Trump campaign is it has never been more established within the inner circles of the Donald Trump campaign. It is the most professional it's ever been. It is the most establishment Republican has ever been. And the periphery, the people who hang out at Mar-a-Lago to get one picture with him, have never been crazier. And it is just the absolute, true, strange dichotomy of Republican politics right now.
That is such a good point. Ryan, I also saw you tweeting a lot about mail-in voting and about early voting. I was wondering if you could expand on that. I know there's a big war in the Republican Party about that, but something that you have to acknowledge is the strength of a lot of mail-in voters, as long as it is allowed for Democrats. What are some of the thoughts on that, and then how Republicans should think about it as well?
I mean, Republicans used to dominate early voting because early voting was primarily the method that elderly people voted in, people 75 and older who couldn't make it to the polls. And that obviously changed really during COVID. But there is no excuse why Republicans are losing the early in-person ballot voting. I mean, people can go to the polls for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, ahead of time and actually vote in person. I understand fears of early voting. And obviously in the recent case in Connecticut, it was shown that early voting did result in some some changing of the ballots or something like that. But there is, I understand the fear, but there is no fear of in-person early voting. If you are a 2 of 4 voter, that means you voted in 2 of the last 4 elections or 1 of the last 4 elections, there is a very high chance that you're not going to wake up on a Tuesday for a special election and say, I got to get to vote. Someone like me, I will always vote. I vote in every single, I've never missed an election in my life. But that the people that Republicans need to get out and go vote early are those 1 of 4, those 2 of 4s, those people without the high propensity of voting. And the way it breaks down in America is the people who vote the most often are college-educated whites who are increasingly liberal. Blacks are second. Non-college educated whites are third. Latinos and Asians are 4th and 5th. Well, who are Republicans gaining with? Asians and Latinos and white non-college educated voters while losing college educated voters. So we are trading in high propensity voters for low propensity voters. That is problematic. And there is and as long as this perpetual fear that every election is stolen is going around, we're not going to move the needle with a huge mass of people. There's millions and millions of people in that latter pool Republicans gain. You just got to get them to show up.
Yes.
So famously, back in 2016, Chuck Schumer said, for every blue-collar Democrat we lose in Western PA, we will pick up 2 moderate Republicans in the suburbs in Philadelphia, and you can repeat that in Ohio and Illinois and Wisconsin. Obviously, didn't work out for Democrats in 2016. But it sounds like what you're arguing is basically like he was right. Over time, that is what happened. And, historically, Republicans always had the turnout advantage because they tended to do better among wealthier college-educated people. And those were the people who are the more reliable voters. But that dynamic has now completely flipped.
Right. I mean, that's true. And that's why these special elections, I mean, in 2023 so far, in all the special elections, and I think 2022, the average number of vote is D+6 from where it was in 2020. The electorate is 6% more Democrat than it was in 2020. And that is not because everyone who was Republican changed their minds. It's because of who was showing up to actually go vote in these elections. In 2022, we Republicans in states like New York and states like Florida, where the issues were crime and COVID, and the Republican independent vote was very, very strong. They had a very, great performance. In other places around the country, when it was about either Donald Trump or abortion, and the independent vote was weak, it had a negative impact. We lost a lot of these races, but more importantly is the number of Republicans turning out to vote wasn't high enough because we were losing those high propensity college educated people. That is a long-term problem, but it's not a problem that can't be fixed. It's not like, Lee Zeldin didn't get 47% or 46.5% in New York State, or Governor Ron DeSantis didn't get 59% in Florida. There are places where people have made that impact and that inroad. It's just the issues that they talk about. It's the vibe that they sit there and bring about. And it's the fact that they are, really hitting voters where they're at, rather than trying to take them on this, merry-go-round into crazy land. And I think that really is, but there is a big difference between the Pennsylvania governor's election and the New York governor's election.
Yes.
New York had a closer election than Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was to the left of not only just New York, but of California. And it wasn't because the electorate changed, it's because the candidates changed. And that really does mean something.
I think that matters more at the state level than it does for federal elections, which I think increasingly are more subject just to national trends than candidate quality is. That's how you get like an Andy Beshear that can win in Kentucky. That's how you can get such an outsized result in a place like Pennsylvania or New York, who's unique and well-known in the state, that can outperform in a governor's race. I think it is a little different at the federal level, but your points are all well taken. How do you think that it translates for 2024? Because this is basically the Democratic cope at this point, is like, yeah, the polls look really bad for Joe Biden, and 86% of the country thinks he's too old, and his approval ratings are trash. However, in these special elections, we are consistently outperforming because people are just so disgusted with whatever it is that the Republicans are trying to sell them. Do you think that that logic works out for 2024, or are the dynamics of a special election different enough from a national presidential general election that the trend doesn't really hold up?
I think they differ. They definitely differ substantially. There's big questions. Minority turnout has been down in almost every one of these special elections. There is no indication of whether or not minority turnout, especially Black turnout, will be where it was in 2020. If it reflects 2016 numbers, which was Blacks were 12% of the national electorate rather than 13%, that 1% dip is enough to swing the entire country towards Donald Trump. The other question is that does the white college educated vote will not mean enough if the millions upon millions of non-college educated voters, both Hispanic, Asian, and white, come out in droves like they did for Trump, not only in 2016, but in 2020. Trump had very high turnout among those groups in 2020. It just wasn't enough because he was losing independents, and he was losing enough of non-college educated voters to sit there and matter. But nonetheless, it's not. I don't think special elections reflect the presidential election, but they do reflect a changing issue where we will have issues in midterms going forwards. We will have issues in specials going forwards. That is a serious long-term problem that needs to be solved. But I don't think it's reflective of 2024 yet.
Really well said, Ryan. As we said, he's got the National Populist newsletter. Link is down in the description. Go subscribe to it and help him out. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to see you.
Bye.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.